Good morning, I'm Holly Ittle. I'm the exhibitions director here at the Dairy Barn Art Center, and today we're speaking with 3 artists featured in OH+5 contemporary art of our region. It's on display here at the Dairy Barn Art Center now through March 13th, 2022, and you can find more information at dairybarn.org. I'm going to let each of the 3 artists introduce themselves before I step out for the conversation. David, good morning.
Hi, David-LAPALOMBARA, professor of painting and drawing here at Ohio University in Athens.
Thanks for being with us. Hi, Georgia. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Georgia Tambasis, and I live in Wheeling, West Virginia, and I'm an adjunct faculty member at Bethany College in Wheeling, West Virginia.
Thanks for being with us. Hi, Kara.
Hi, my name is Zuzu. I am a ceramic sculpture artist out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Thanks for being with us. Okay, so I am going to just turn off my camera and mute myself and let you 3 have conversation about your art.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess I'm asking the first question, which is what processes were used in the making of your artwork for this show? And I'll answer last.
Well, for me, I basically used clay, and my work is sort of intuitive. I just kind of started playing around and made the shapes, and then I experimented with the glazes. It's all hand built, so I didn't really use any sort of other material other than my hands, honestly. So that's all, you know, the only tool I used was my hands, and the only material used were clay and glazes in that particular piece. So that's kind of like my piece for the show. And I have a series that I've kind of been working in, and I don't know if that goes to the next question. So I'll stop and I'll let you respond to
So yeah, the process that I use, I'm also a hand builder. So I work with stoneware and a couple other different clay bodies. And yeah, just hand build my animals, which is always like a creative problem solving process, especially with things like that are long and thin, like the ears of the rabbit. But yeah, I also use glazes, mostly underglazes. And then I do some cold finishes on my pieces too. So for the eyes, for example, just really kind of make them glossy and realistic.
I'm glad I'm not a ceramist. I'd be scared to death the long ears would break off. So my work is oil paint on wood panels. They're fairly small, like 18 inches by 24. I've experimented around for years on various different sizes, and I like that size because it's sort of within the range of my sort of when I'm sitting down, arm reach in either direction, back and forth or up or down. And I've been trying to figure out over the last few years how to start and finish my paintings in one sitting. I'm not exactly painting plein air, but I'm trying to kind of get that feeling in my work of sort of immediate loose brush strokes and that sort of feeling of immediacy. Oh, so next question is, what do you think is evoked in the viewer when they see your artwork? What do you hope is evoked? I guess we can go in the same order too, if you want.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Sure.
Well, I just hope that they look at it and maybe spend more than 1 minute examining the piece and maybe being curious about what it is. I don't have a sort of preconceived idea most of the time. I have sort of a general idea, but I don't specifically have a specific message for my work. And I kind of want it to be open to interpretation. So I'm hoping that the viewer brings something to the work. So that's kind of my way of looking at the viewer.
Yeah, I agree with what Georgia had said. Like, I like it when a viewer comes and processes the piece for, you know, a couple minutes or even a couple seconds and kind of responds to it in the way that they individually would. The title of mine, it's inspired by Watership Down, so it's pretty specific of who that rabbit is, but most people might not know it unless you've read the book. And so yeah, I want the person to look at it and look at those red eyes and, you know, the eternal flame on the breast of the rabbit and ask themselves, you know, why might this artist have chosen to put this here, and even find their own meaning within it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, that's cool. I haven't read that book in a long time, but my gosh, it's one of my all-time favorites. I'm going to have to read it again and look at your artwork again and appreciate it anew. My work, I've been working, I started out as a sculptor, believe it or not, and ended up currently, at least, as mostly a painter. And I've been working in nature probably for most of my career. And I've also been teaching a class called Art and Environment for a long time now. And in the last year, I've been trying to kind of think of a way to sort of incorporate my interest in environmentalism into my artwork specifically. And so I started this new series last summer that I guess I'm calling Resplendent Ruination, beautiful paintings about horrible, terrible things that are happening in the environment, whether it's wildfires, clear cutting, or water pollution that contribute to obviously climate change and soil erosion, which is a huge problem, and groundwater contamination. So I guess what I hope to take away for my viewers is maybe like one person at a time, just an awareness of an issue or problem that I don't know if we're going to solve the problem of climate change, but I suppose if enough individuals try to do whatever little bit that they can do, that maybe we will, save the planet before we exterminate ourselves. Sorry. So next question, oh, wait a minute, yeah. Oh, you know what? I'm asking the wrong questions. Good Lord. I am like, this is so ridiculous. Kara, I asked your second question.
That's all good.
You can ask my second question.
Okay.
What is the significance of the title? And I will ask, was your work created as a part of a series?
Okay. Do you want me to ask the significant title question, or do you want
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Yeah. When it's your turn.
Okay.
Or, well, I don't know. I'm skipping my second question.
Okay. Do you want me to go about the part of a series?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have been kind of experimenting with this kind of like mushroom shape, and I've been making a lot of pieces related to sort of, I didn't have a mushroom in mind, so that this is kind of the shape. This is raku, so this is a mushroom kind of shape. So when I looked at it, it kind of looked like a mushroom, and then I kind of went with it, and then I started kind of building these sort of shapes, and they have kind of that same mushroom sort of circular organic form, but it's combined and stacked into different shapes, organic shapes. And I titled it Orange Teapot because it kind of looked like a teapot to me, but it's really not a teapot because it's not a functional teapot and it's not even hollow. So it's really just a name I came up with to identify it. I don't necessarily have a specific name for the piece. But I like so I think what kind of ties a lot of my work together is just the idea of stacking. So I tend to stack. I also paint and draw. And I've been creating, at the same time I've been creating those pieces, I've also create these kind of watercolors, these quick watercolors. And they're kind of shapes that are kind of stacked on top of each other. And they kind of look like they might fall off, or they don't belong together. And so I realize that I'm doing the same thing in ceramics. So I think one ties into each other. And I like the spontaneity of watercolor and the spontaneity of the clay. And I tend to be very spontaneous and kind of just allow it to happen and then go with whatever happens with my clay or even my watercolors. So that's kind of, the question I guess was what inspires you? Is that what it was?
Was your work created as a part of
a series? It's a series, yeah. So it's, in a way it is part of a series, yeah. So, I just wanted to show you like sort of my, the stacking idea. I have it in different, like I also do more sort of geometric. So this is another stacking. I'm interested in color, obviously. So this is my other series of stacking, which is stacked differently. They're like slabs of clay. meticulously colored though, with underglazes and then fired and then kind of like glued together. So I kind of work in various ways, and I work in sculpture, metal also, and I do large paintings. I have one in the background. They are kind of like similar, they're 6 feet by. So yeah, I kind of work in a variety of media. So I love clay and I love watercolor because of its spontaneity, but I also like to fool around with other kinds of media in my work, because one idea evolves into another one, and a different media. It looks different in different media, I guess, and I'm interested in that.
So the piece that I have is part of a series, and it is inspired by Watership Down. I love animals, and they usually drive most of my work. And so in reading Watership Down, I found a lot of inspiration in it, and just as like a kind of like a deep dive into looking at culture. And I felt that many of the characters represented a different part of culture. And so I wanted to capture that in the pieces. I also was not jaded by ever watching the movie. So the pieces are really like how I envision the rabbits looking when reading the book. And I have not watched the movie since, because I'm like, this is not what I think they look like. So but yeah, I really enjoyed the book. I was a big Animal Farm like fan as well. And so I just really like when animals are kind of used to personify human like emotions and flaws and characteristics and all that kind of stuff.
Nice. I guess I always work in series. When I start a series of paintings, I'll prep up, like a dozen or more panels that are similar in size, and I think in this I probably have about a dozen paintings in this new series. It's funny, the one piece I submitted 3 pieces for the show, and the one that I was most excited about didn't get in, which is not unusual, I suppose. But I was excited about it because, in looking for my source images, I'm looking for open source, not copyrighted materials on the internet to kind of find inspiration and cobble things together. But I've also been in contact and gotten permission from an Indonesian photojournalist who's done a lot of reporting on clear cutting, and that was the piece that didn't get in, which is kind of like disappointing. But anyway, that's another story altogether. My last question is, where do you find inspiration?
Well, I'll go because I kind of think I already kind of talked about it. I find inspiration in everything and anything. So like Kara, like I love books, and I especially love children's books. One of my favorite books is The Little Prince, and of course I signed that to my class sometimes to get ideas, even though it's a studio class. And also Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. It goes well with clay because one form morphs into another. Dirt becomes into this ceramic object. So yeah, they come from, literature, poetry, my life, just kind of everything really. I really, but I think the main theme that kind of, I grew up in Greece, and I'm an immigrant from Greece, in a small village. And I did not have a lot of art materials. I wasn't exposed to art, but I learned to play with the dirt and sticks and kind of make things up as a kid. And I think that is still instinctively in my work, the idea of play and the kind of fooling around and making things and interesting objects and kind of looking. For me, like, I wish I worked like you, David, because I don't have a plan. And so it's really hard. I have to step back after I make a bunch of stuff and look at it and then decide how it belongs together and make it into a series. So I kind of work the opposite from you in a sense. And sometimes I wish I could work like you because it would make my life easier.
Yeah, I mean, animals and nature have always been a big inspiration for me. Even since I was a little kid, my mom would buy me Sculpey, and I was like determined to sculpt every single animal that I knew of. And I think as like a 37-year-old woman, I'm still continuing that. I just want to sculpt every animal, every part of nature. I have a real passion for them. I have a passion for animals and kind of just giving voice to something that doesn't have a voice the same way that humans do. Usually when I'm starting off on a project, it's like I will, in my sketchbook, write like every single animal I want to sculpt, and then it's kind of narrowing it down from there. And then kind of focusing on like the series and the message that I want to say.
I guess I find inspiration from wherever I find myself. And I guess growing up, my parents, we moved every year for like the first, like until I was in the 3rd or 4th grade, I never went to the same school more than 1 year in a row. And so it was like a lot of different places, spent a lot of time running around outdoors in the woods in nature. And so I don't know, I guess I just feel like I just respond to whatever the environment that I find myself in, and it gives me the perfect excuse also to travel places for my art in order to kind of visit new places, revisit old places. And so I guess that's my inspiration. And that's all my questions. And I think, Sarah, you're up next, and you get to ask my second question that I've fudged on.
All right. So what is everybody creating currently? And David or Georgia, whoever wants to start us off.
I'll let David start since I started the last time.
So right now I am, my sister, I paint a lot of Acadia National Park, which is Maine. I've been going up there since I was 8 years old, every summer for as long as possible. And she was up there this winter and took a bunch of photographs of like icy lakes and snow landscapes. And so I'm painting snow scenes right now, which is interesting and challenging and really different, and kind of enjoying it and trying to figure out how to do it. So that's what I'm currently working on.
So I am, I kind of talked a little bit. I'm currently sort of playing with the idea of the character, like the character Gregor in the Metamorphosis, turning into a bug. I imagine this creature with all these legs like moving around, but it's, for me, it's not, when you look at it, you know, most people won't know what it is. It looks more kind of like coral. And I do have a piece I can show you. It's in process. The pieces aren't quite resolved yet. So this is kind of like my Gregor with his little legs, like coming up in his little bug face. But, I can't, like, I have a hard time resolving presentation for my pieces. Like, I don't know, I think I want it to be a table piece, but then it also looks really cool as a wall piece, so I make a lot of stuff. And right now my focus is on these kind of Gregor sort of type pieces. And I have I started, these kind of like things coming out of clay. And I'm going to continue with this and see what it leads me. It's not a resolved process, but I'm also working with this series in 2D, like in watercolor, and kind of I go back and forth quite a bit. So that's kind of my new series.
I'm actually going, I have a residency at the Sonoran Desert Museum, and I'm actually leaving to go there next week.
Oh,
So right now I have been working on a series. I'm bringing some pieces out with me, and the series that I'm working on is a lot of cactus influence, but also been really inspired by researching some of the endangered and threatened animals of that region. And so incorporating them in my pieces, just to again, kind of giving voice to underrepresented animals, or animals that people don't really know about and that we have to protect so that they are still here for our future generations.
You're going to Arizona?
Yeah.
Have you been before?
What's that?
Have you been before?
I have been before, yeah. So
it's an incredible landscape.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I cannot wait, especially coming from Pittsburgh where it's like 20 degrees right now. So
I wish I was going with you. Can you take me along in your suitcase?
I know. Right?
Cool.
All right, so I think I'm going back and I'm asking,
About titles.
oh, what was the significance of the title of your piece in the OH+5 2022 show?
I think I'm bad with titles. I don't know. So I've done probably like 7 paintings now of wildfires, and I'm titling them Wildfire 1, Wildfire 2. I don't know. So, I mean, I guess the significance is just to try to kind of create a little bit of a context and point the viewer in the direction that I'm trying to have a conversation about.
Yeah, I don't, with the one that it's in the exhibit, I don't really, there's really no significance other than the color. And for me, just distinguishing which work is in there. Because I like David, our titles are so hard because I don't have a specific theme, and I don't want to lead the viewer in any way. I want it to be completely open. And I hate to always put them on title because you don't know which piece is which. So I haven't figured out a system yet, but with my 2D work, sometimes the first thing that comes into my head, I title them, or if I'm listening to music, I might title it to whatever music that I was listening at the time. So sometimes it just has to deal with like the present moment that I was in, and maybe the confusion or feeling or that I was having. So it would be like, this one's having fun. This one is, I finally resolved it or something like that. So just in the moment.
Yeah, I am also bad at titling. I would just call everything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if I had to. That one was pretty much self-titled just because of the character from the book. But yeah, I agree with what Georgia said too. Like, sometimes I don't really like putting a title that is too revealing because I do want the viewer to interpret the piece on their own. I don't want to create that for them. I kind of feel like, once I've sculpted something and I've put it up on display, it's out of my control. And so now the viewer is in control of how they interpret it. And I kind of like that. I like that like release of control because making is so controlling. So it's kind of nice to set it free and let it kind of navigate its own voyage after that. All right. So what problems do you solve when creating this work?
So for me, it's funny. I mean, I took one painting class in college and then transformed myself into a painter, beginning in grad school and then after grad school. I went to Italy after grad school, and there's a joke that sculptors go to Italy and come home painters, which I guess happened to me. And not that I've stopped doing installation sculpture, but what problems do I solve? I mean, so for me, I mean, I don't think this is unique to me as a painter, only because or just because I didn't start out as a painter. But when I started my this Resplendent Ruination series, like I'd never painted fire before, and I really hadn't used a lot of the colors that I was incorporating into those paintings, cadmium oranges and reds and yellows, and trying to figure out how to get a feeling of depth and space and atmosphere and sort of realness into the painting. So that was a problem to solve. And then I guess the other bigger problem to solve is what I mentioned earlier, which is, are my works raising awareness? Are they helping make the world a better place, even if just in little bits and pieces? And so I guess those are the two problems that I'm sort of thinking about in that particular series of works in the show.
I'm just trying to think. I guess my problem solving with my work is maybe less technical. Sometimes I think I try to solve, not that my work is therapy, but I try to solve maybe my sort of emotional state at the moment that I'm creating. Also, as far as technical goes, I think I'd like to experiment a lot with glazes, and there's a specific color. I love color and I dream in color, and so there's a specific color that I want that sometimes I can never get it, and I just have to keep trying and trying and trying in the kiln figure out how to get that surface and that color. And I do a lot of experiments. And as they told me in graduate school, I need to write things down, and I don't. And so then I can never repeat something that I really love, and it's killing me. And I tell my students all the time, please write it down. But of course I don't do it myself. So because I'm in the moment and I just want to get it done, and I don't want to stop to write things down as I go. And so I lose that. But for me, it's, coming up with a specific color or texture, even with my 2D work. And because I have a vision of color. I love color, and I can't get the colors that I want sometimes. Maybe they don't exist except in my mind.
Yeah, I think problems that I solve when creating work is, clay has a mind of its own. And I love that aspect of it. I love like the problem solving and the engineering, and like, how can I make 12-inch ears and have them not break and stand up and still kind of look thin, but structurally sound. So I like that part of it. And just like, even as somebody that used to paint and draw a lot, like problem solving something from 2-dimensional form into 3D, I find really addicting. And yeah, I think like getting color combinations, I also don't write anything down, and I'm like, oh, I really loved what happened on the last one. And then it's like, wow, it's just a gamble on the next one. So,
Right.
but I think that's also kind of just like part of the process of making art and the adventure of making art. Like, it doesn't need to be so like technical all the time, that it is like a free flowing and expression of yourself.
Yeah.
All right. If you have seen the exhibit, what was your impression of the show, and did anything stand out to you?
Well, yes, I did see the show, and I mean, I guess I'm always impressed with this show, how many different artists and different styles are represented. I mean, there was I don't know, I don't remember if Holly indicated like how many individual pieces are in the show, but it's a lot. And so it's always really interesting. And I mean, there are so many good artists in the world, and even in our little region, it's just like, oh my gosh, people whose work I'm not familiar with, who I don't know, and it's just amazing how many dedicated and talented artists are really up there and working. And did anything stand out to you? Yes, I was totally freaked out to be around so many people for the first time in 2 years. It was the most crowded space environment I've been in since pandemic, which is, we're on year 3 now, or about on year 3. And so, everybody was masked up, but it was still, I will admit, a little disconcerting.
I kind of agree with David. I didn't see the actual show. I did see the space because it took my work down, and I was impressed with the space. It was just so nice and open. I love the openness. I love the space. And I did catch some of the video. I didn't do the whole thing. And I just was impressed with the variety of work and the variety of, just styles that every artist had, which was great. I did some familiar work. I didn't realize that my fellow artist from Wheeling, West Virginia, Robert Villamango's in the show. So it was nice to see his pieces. Also, I think maybe that was the only artist that I know that was in the show. And I was impressed with when the video came to the rabbit. I have to say, it made me smile. And my first question is, how did those ears not break? David, your pieces, I was like, wow, those were, I was just like wowed by your pieces, and I want one. Just the color and the mood that he created, there was just a mood. So yeah, so I was definitely impressed by both of your work that was in the show. And I collect art, so I have to go down there and see if I can buy some if it's affordable. Yeah.
I have not been able to make it out to see the show, but I love being able to see both of your works, and like just some of the images that have been posted. I really actually enjoy this like sit down and talk, because hearing both of your processes adds a lot of depth to both of the works that, like, had I just looked at it, I might not have gotten immediately. So I always like group shows, because I think, David, like what you said, it's so cool to see what like the collective in your area is making. And like, because I think we all, when we're working in the studio, like it's like heads down focus,
Yeah.
like do not communicate with anybody or the outside world. And then to go to a group show, you're like, wow, that's like so impressive what like people are making and utilizing their time to make with. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I sometimes I miss my graduate school, because you had like a group of people that you continually, worked with and threw ideas back and forth, and you were inspired by, or maybe, healthy competition type thing. But with being out of grad school and being, working and wearing so many different hats in my life, I don't have that communication with a lot of other artists, and it's really difficult. So it is nice to be in a group show. And I love this, actually. This is great. This is the first time that I was able to talk about my work in a long time. So it's great. Thank you, Holly.
I think
So
we're on to the quick fire questions, Georgia.
Oh, okay. Quick fire. So I'll ask Kara first. Clay or paint?
Clay.
Visit a gallery or visit a museum?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, should I do one person first and then?
No, good. Yeah, do one person at a time.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. Visit a gallery or visit a museum, Kara?
Museum.
Morning studio or morning hike?
Studio.
Sketching on paper or sketching digitally?
Paper.
Traditional materials or alternative materials?
Both.
The sun or moon?
Sun.
Music or podcast?
Podcast.
Okay, David, your turn. Clay or paint?
Paint.
Visit a gallery or visit a museum?
I think I'll say gallery there. Yeah,
Morning studio or morning hike?
definitely morning studio.
Sketching on paper or sketching digitally?
Sketching on paper, although I'd love to learn how to do more digital drawing.
Traditional materials or alternative materials?
Traditional.
Sun or moon?
I'm a total beach bum, so sun
Music or podcast?
and music.
Okay, so I guess I'll ask this to myself.
Or I can ask you, Georgia, if you want.
Yeah, do you mind? Okay.
Yeah, I got it. All right. So Georgia, clay or paint?
Both.
Visit a gallery or visit a museum?
I think both, but I think I prefer a museum.
Morning studio time or morning hike?
Studio.
Sketching on paper or sketching digitally?
Paper. I love paper.
Traditional materials or alternative materials?
Traditional, but I like to mix it up.
Sun or moon?
Both.
Music or podcast?
Music.
Nice.
I didn't know we were allowed to answer both on any of that.
Well, you're a free agent. You can
We make our own rules.